Hi guys, so today I want to show you how to take proportion measurements using your pencil so that when you're making a drawing, you can make the size of one object in the drawing accurate relative to other objects in the drawing. If you use this method the right way, you're going to get very accurate drawings in a really short time, but it is a little tricky to get used to doing. So follow along with the steps.
So I've set up two objects just as a very simple still life. And I want to let you know before we start that this measurement method can be used two ways. The first way is what they call a sight size method, which means that whatever size I measure it using, and I'll show you how I measure it in just a moment, but whatever size I measure it, I draw it that size right on my paper. Now the other way of using measurements is comparative measurements. And that means that we're looking more for proportions, which means the size of one thing relative to another. So if I draw that bowl, that black bowl, 6 feet tall, as long as I know the right proportion relationship, I know what size to draw that big pepper mill. So let me get started. This is the pencil I'm going to use. This isn't the kind of pencil that I would normally use for a drawing, but it just happened to be, it's a regular school pencil, and it just happened to be what was available when I sat down. So let me show you how this works. There's my still life. What I do is I hold my arm out straight. Now it's very important that you hold your arm out straight because that's how I sit my body up straight, I hold my arm out straight, and that's how I make sure that nothing changes. And I'll show you what that means in just a second. But I hold my arm out straight and you'll notice that I'm lining the top of my pencil up with the top of the object. Now I'm sliding my thumb down to the bottom. And that's my measurement. I'm holding that measurement. That becomes my unit. And what I'm going to do with this unit is I'm going to measure everything in the drawing. So if this is my unit, then I can measure how wide the ellipse is. And funny enough, the ellipse, see where my thumb is on the left edge and the top of my pencil is on the right edge. Notice that my unit height-wise is almost exactly the same as the width of the ellipse right there. So let's give that a try again. I'm going to measure my unit this way, and I see that that's whatever size tall I make it, I'm going to have to make the ellipse part of it exactly that wide. So let me show you on the paper. I'm also going to take a little proportion measurement before I start right here. Let's see, relative to the top of to the opening of the ellipse. Let's see, is that, yep, it's almost the same from the edge of the ellipse, from the bottom of the bowl to the edge of the ellipse, and from the edge of the ellipse to the top. So let's see how we can use that in the drawing. So what I've done on my paper is that I've laid out essentially a square, just drawn it very lightly with my pencil, and I've then divided it in half vertically because I want to make sure that this thing is symmetrical as possible because, you know, the bowl is pretty symmetrical. And then I've also divided it in half horizontally because, as I showed in the previous scene, when I measured the bowl from the bottom of the bowl to the rim and then move that measurement up, it was just about exact. Okay, and remember again, we're using a square because when I measure the height of the bowl from the back of the ellipse down to the bottom and then compare it from edge to edge, it's almost exact too. Lightly sketch what I see. So this is the ellipse. That is the back, and notice I'm using a really sketchy stroke, and that's really what I expect you to do. I draw this ellipse many times, very lightly, and I'm trying to actually use my phone as a viewfinder so that I can record this. So it's probably not the best drawing that I'm ever going to do, but you get the idea. So I am, by the way, looking over my phone, and I'm looking at the bowl while I'm doing this. I'm not just looking down at my paper and never looking away again. I'm looking back and forth as I draw. And that's a habit you should all get into using. Trying to draw my ellipse as accurately as I can. But by using this sketching stroke, this light, many lines, what it allows me to do is kind of find the curve. And then when I decide that I'm going to finish this drawing, I can actually choose the line that best serves. So as you can see, I've gone through and I've laid out the proportions of the bowl. And take a look at my drawing, and then take a look at the bowl. Okay, so I've gone through and darkened some of the lines that I thought were some of the more appropriate lines. That I need to be clear. This is not the way that I would normally draw this if this was going to be later what's called a value drawing or a shaded drawing. These lines are way too heavy and they're going to be hard to make disappear. The only thing that might save me from that is that this object is really, really dark. So because it's so dark, I might be able to disguise those dark lines. This would not be what you would want to do if you were planning on shading this drawing later. Now, if you were going to do just a line drawing, you could get away with this. But most of the time when we do drawings here, they're not going to be just line drawings. They're going to be shaded. Now, I want you to take a quick look here, though. This is my square that I started out with. And it's a square again because when I measure the unit this way, when I measure this way from the top of the back of the ellipse right here, down to the bottom of my object, and I hold that measurement and turn it sideways and go from the edge here over to where my thumb is, it's about 1 to 1, which is a square. 1 unit high to 1 unit wide. So I laid out my square. Then I measured the ellipse. So I put my pencil, the top of my pencil at the back of at the top of the back of the ellipse and slide down to the bottom. And I hold that, and then I measure from the bottom up to the lip of the ellipse, and they're just about the same. And so what I did was I made a light line here to divide my square in half, and then of course I put a center line down because this is symmetrical, and I wanted it to be about the same on both sides. So that is how you use proportion measurement to draw a single object. You can also use this technique to measure and draw multiple objects. And I'm not going to draw that right now, but I'll show you how that works. So let's say that I'm going to use the ellipse from the back to the front. I'm going to use the ellipse as my unit. So I go ahead and measure that. Hold my arm out straight, put the pencil at the back of the ellipse, and slide my thumb down. That becomes a good unit right there. Unit of measurement on a ruler is an inch or a centimeter. This is our unit of measurement. So now I can measure this pepper mill. There's 1, 2, 3, and a little bit more. So from the top of the pepper mill to the bottom, it's about 3 of these ellipses high. 1, 2, 3. Okay? So a few minutes ago, guys, I was talking about why you should always sit up straight and put your arm out straight. Here's why you need to do that, and it is something that you need to do every time. So if I hold my arm out straight, and right now I actually have my elbow locked, so my arm is fully extended, and I put the top of my pencil at the top of the ellipse and slide my thumb down to the bottom of the ellipse, and then I put my arm down so that I can draw for a little while, and then I go back to that with a fully extended arm. Notice it comes right out to be the same. But if I bend my arm every time, if I have a bent elbow every time, and here's my bent elbow, and I measure this, and then I put my arm down, and then I come back and, oh, my elbow, I didn't change my measurement, but my elbow is not bent at exactly the same bend. And then I put my arm down, and this time, notice that the measurement changes every single time. So you do need to make sure that you get your elbow out all the way, take your measurement, hold the unit, do your drawing, go back, and the next time that you measure, you're sure that your measurement's going to be the same as it was the first time that you did it. So always keep that arm out straight and try to sit up straight.